If you have low self-worth, I guarantee you're surrounding yourself with people who are takers because you have the one thing they need, which is self-belief. The people who get angry with you when you set a boundary are the people who are benefiting from you not having any. When you set a boundary and there's a huge lash out, how interesting. Whereas if you were to set a boundary with me, I would be like, okay, totally understand. I'm so sorry. My bad. I'm not benefiting from you not having boundaries. Okay, so toxic people always show their true colors when you set boundaries. People with low self-worth never set boundaries.
Hello, and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Alday Townsend, your host. This podcast is for individuals that are wanting to grow personally and professionally. The podcast is going to offer mindset shifts, personal experiences from myself and guest. We're also going to provide some great resources, tools, and direction for navigating life. The goal is to inspire you and encourage you to take ownership of your life and begin living it completely fully today. Let's get to stroking it. Hello and welcome. I'm Alday Townsend, your host. Today, my guest is Lazaros. We are going to be encouraging and inspiring you today. We're going to be talking about taking ownership of not only you, but your employee, your friends, and family. Alan is the CEO of the Next Level University podcast, a global top 100 podcast with over 1,500 episodes. He is super excited to be here. He's going to be sharing some high and low points and how he changed his life. Alan, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you.
Jenny, thank you for having me. It is an honor. I've done my research. I've looked at your show. I looked at the description. I love what you're doing. I think that taking care of yourself and improving yourself is not selfish, even though we're taught that it is. So I love what you're doing and I appreciate it. And it's an honor.
Thank you so much. So before we get into the bulk of the podcast, can you please tell our listeners a little bit about you? Like, where do you live? What season of life? And kind of give them a sneak peek of what they're going to expect to learn from you today.
Okay, so where I live is in Massachusetts, a little town called Uxbridge on the border of Rhode Island, Massachusetts. And what season of life am I in? So we have a big event coming up in 9 days. So I'm in the squeeze for sure. And I'm cracking like a walnut under the pressure. No, I'm being playful, but we're definitely in a grind season. Q1 of 2024 has been a lot. We had a really big Q3 and a really big Q4 last year. And Q1 has been one of those grind quarters of just put your head down and get it done. As a matter of fact, I got sick for the first time in 9 years. You can hear, I'm normally, my business partner, Kev, my co-host, he's like, oh, you sound like a grown man for the first time. Cause he's being playful, but, you can hear it in my voice. I'm very nasally, but again, at the end of the day, what are you going to learn from me? I think what you're going to learn from me more than anything is personal responsibility, leading by example, and making it okay that you struggle, because we have these big goals, we have these big dreams. And to me, I just think it's really important to understand that I talked to you about this in the preamble, you and I's chat beforehand. It's really important to understand that if you want success over here, you have to want the struggle that comes with it. And you have to take the personal responsibility in advance for that success. And quite frankly, you can't have success without struggle and pressure and overwhelm. And it's how you navigate that I think is going to make the difference. So I think that's probably what you're going to learn today.
I love that. So I'm resonating with two things that you specifically said. Q1 of 2024 has been a grind. It really has been a grind. I don't know what's going on, but I will tell you, you and I are not the only ones feeling it. It's almost like, I don't want to say we're back in COVID, but I feel like you're having to be so innovative. You're having to be so fast, and you're having to have really great output on all levels right now. I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you for sure. And secondly, the other thing that you just said resonated with me too, with like understanding the struggle that is required to get to a certain level of success. And I talk to team members, I talk to other people, and some individuals aren't really understanding that, or not willing to go through the struggle, or don't want to go through the struggle to get to where they want to go. And I really can't wait to lean into that part of the conversation. So thank you for sharing that.
You're so very welcome. Yeah, I think that a lot of us are feeling the squeeze of sort of, I think, the global economy. I'm not going to go deep into the rabbit hole of that, but I do feel like a lot of people are squeezed right now from a lot of overextending that happened during COVID. I know a lot of people bought houses back then. I did as well. So I think it's expansion, contraction. I think that's what the world does, us as individuals do as well. And I think right now it's been a little bit of a squeeze, and I playfully said I'm cracking like a walnut, but I'm not kidding. I got sick for the first time in 9 years just because the grind has gotten so grindy, and I'm trying to take care of myself along the way. So.
Right. Getting back that work-life balance for sure. So I always love starting with the love languages, the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. It's been really impactful in my life when developing great relationships with individuals. What's been your experience with the 5 love languages?
Okay. So I actually coach couples with my intimate partner, Emilia. We have a podcast called the Conscious Couples Podcast, and we've been coaching marriages and relationships for the last 3 years now. And so we actually created something called the 25 conscious love languages. And so what it does is it expands on Gary Chapman's work. And we have a PDF where we go through this with our clients, and they say from 0 to 10, how much do you value these love languages? And so my experience with the love languages is, first of all, super important. Number 2, what you find when you're coaching these couples is that they're missing each other in these really big ways. So one of the love languages that we added to the 5 love languages to make the 25 conscious love languages is fitness. So I was in a relationship in the past where I valued fitness at level 10 and my partner valued it at level 2. So that's a huge mismatch. And so with the love languages, there's always sort of a mismatch. But the cool part about the love languages, and I think this is what you're alluding to as well, and probably have talked about on your show, they apply to yourself as well. And so if you have a level 10 love language that's important to you at level 10 and you're neglecting it, you're going to have a bad relationship with yourself. And your self-respect is going to go down. Your self-esteem is going to go down. Your self-trust is going to go down. And so you have to take care of your relationship with yourself first. And at our other company called The We, which is the one that the Conscious Couples podcast falls underneath, we say there's 2 me's that make up the we. And if the me's are empty cups, then the we will be an empty cup. And so she's taken on a little more support lately because I've been in the squeeze of a live event coming up, and I also got sick. And then, but she's kind of pouring more into the we and less into the me, while I'm pouring more into the me and she's pouring more into me. And so we're going to have to shift back. And so I reassured her recently after the live event, and when I'm feeling better, I promise this will shift back, because if it doesn't, our relationship will be in trouble.
Right. And I love that you're so open and you're aware of it, and you're willing to make the sacrifices in the future, and you're making those promises now. So you're validating her feelings as well, which I think is super, super important, because sometimes we just expect them to just go along with the plan and be there to support and pick up the pieces, but we never really dive it back in and say, hey, I really appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. And it's going to pay off for the both of us as well. So you're definitely working as a team in the we, for sure. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Your website, does it have a downloadable form where people can get those 25?
I appreciate the question. Yeah. So I actually was asked on a podcast yesterday about that. So we have a PDF called the 25 Conscious Love Languages. It's free. Just email me. We don't have it downloadable anywhere. I know that we put it in G Drive somewhere because we link it in our own show, but I honestly couldn't tell you the link. So we should put that on the website. Thank you for that insight and that feedback, because I should have it, but I don't. But you can email me, Alan at nextleveluniverse.com, ALAN at nextleveluniverse.com. It's spelt just like it sounds, nextleveluniverse.com. And if you email me, just say, hey, this is actually the cool part. This PDF for the 25 Conscious Love Languages is our highest hitter. People want to know. They want to know. It's like, oh, I need to know what that is, because me and my partner are missing each other and I know it. So I'm really grateful that you asked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to include that into my e-blast to all of my followers as well. So I'm going to email you for that so that I can share that with all of my followers, because I think that's great. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, I love the love languages. I actually use them in the workplace too. Obviously not personal touch, but I've read the book, The Love Languages for the Workplace, which has been a game changer for leading a team and then training them and teaching them how to incorporate it to their lives and to their families and to their relationships and all of that. So okay, so let's get right into it, because obviously you've got really great value to share with us, and taking ownership of your life and pouring into yourself first and talking about the me. Tell us what you do to boost yourself, to gain momentum, to have this amazing energy so that you can go How are you sustaining yourself?
Yeah, so it's interesting because this is the first time, like I said, I got sick in 9 years, and so I was doing a really good job sustaining myself before. Apparently, I burnt down. But the Kevin, playfully, my business partner, he says, "I don't know how you do it. You're like a cyborg. You never got sick. You never got COVID. You never, this, that, and the other thing." I think the reason why I do it is how I do it. I should say is I take really good care of myself. To your point. And what I mean by that is I have my schedule broken into thirds. So the first third of my mornings are always for me. So the first third is for me. The second third is for service, which is what I'm doing right now. And then the third third is for fitness, food, and family. And so I'm so I work 6 days a week, front facing service. And Sundays are for for Emilia and I. And we don't do any front facing on Sundays unless we absolutely have to because we had to reschedule or something. But I don't do my first call until 11. Now, the thing that I want to make really clear here is that I couldn't do that in the beginning. So I'm now 7 years into business. And when I first started the business with Kevin back in the day, it was crickets. I mean, you have to create demand. I didn't have a lot of demand back then. So please keep in mind that I don't want you to start entrepreneurship and say, I'm not going to do my first call till 11 because I'm not ready, right? That's at the beginning, I took anything I could. And in the beginning, you kind of have to do that. And then eventually your self-worth has to come up and you have to kind of set boundaries. In the beginning, it's crickets. You have to take anything you can within reason. And then tail end, now you have to protect your time and effort. Otherwise, you'll burn down. But that said, so the first third is for me. And what do I mean by that? So I wake up in the morning and I have this journal called the Dreamliner. I use this every day. So I journal and I get all my back office work done. I do my mobility. I make sure I'm hydrated, that kind of thing. And my first call is at 11. I also do my shower while I learn. So I do my shower and learning. And then I make sure I'm ready for front facing from 11 to 7. So service for me is from 11 to 7, Monday through Friday, and then from 11 to 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Because Saturdays we cut a little early. Emilia and I, we go on date nights.
That's awesome.
Then Sunday is for us. No humans is kind of the rule. You're not allowed to talk to anyone basically except for each other sort of thing. Obviously, sometimes we do exceptions. But without a system that is sustainable, you will burn to the ground. And the thing that's important about this is you have to be, I think the world is split into two types of people. And this is an over-exaggeration, but I think this is important. You are either on the right, righty and lefty. We're all righty or lefty. You're either on the right side where you care more about productivity than you do about rest. So I can already tell you are on that end. Okay. Other people look at you and they think you're nuts. They think you're crazy. Like, why, how do you do so much? Why do you do so much? So some people do live to work. Other people work to live. And it's okay. I'm not making it wrong. But most people probably think you're a workaholic. And they definitely think that about me, for sure.
100%.
When the truth is you're not a workaholic. You just love what you do and you want to have a big impact in the world. And it's what fulfills you. Okay. And yeah, maybe a little bit workaholic, right? It is what it is. Okay. So on the right side of the equation, you have people who live to work. And they are very productive and their focus is productivity and they're good at productivity. And they struggle with R&R. They're not good at R&R. That's okay. I'm not good at R&R either. So I have to focus
years.
on.
Now I get it.
Yeah, of course. Which is why you're saying stroke it and take care of yourself because for years you didn't, right? Whereas other people, believe it or not, some people are really good at taking care of themselves. Some people are really good at R&R. Some people, and we think they're a little complacent or maybe a little lazy, and that's our truth. It is what it is. When in reality, they're just really good at taking care of themselves. And maybe they are a little lazy, and that's my truth too. Okay, so the world is split into those two types. We're either really good at being productive and grinding, but we struggle with R&R and we burn ourselves out consistently, or we're really good at R&R, but we don't achieve much. And that's the cold, hard truth. You don't get good at both, really. It's very hard to be ambidextrous. So you can tell as soon as you met me, which one am I? You already know it, right? 1,600 episodes. Come on, man, right? Other people would be like, are you out of your mind? That sounds terrible. And then I look at their life and they're frolicking, hanging out, doing a whole lot of nothing. And that looks terrible to me. So different strokes for different folks. Totally fine. But what I do want to say is that if you're good on the R&R end, you need to focus more on productivity. Don't focus more on R&R. If you're good on the productivity end, which is what I'm assuming you're attracting in your listeners, is people that are super productive, because most likely you're too big of a mirror for people who aren't, then obviously you got to focus on taking good care of yourself. And so at the end of the day, it starts with self-belief and self-worth. It starts with self-esteem and self-confidence. It starts with self. And if you don't build yourself, you can't pour into others. Otherwise, you're going to pour from an empty cup. You're going to sacrifice your health and your relationships, and your whole life will burn to the ground eventually, because the pyramid needs to grow wider at the base before it grows taller. And that's why I think it's the best analogy for life. But a lot of times we get to a certain point and we start letting the bottom of the pyramid erode underneath us, and then the whole thing topples. And so hopefully that's not what happens to you.
That's what happened to me. And that's what inspired this podcast and this whole entire passion project that I have, to be honest with you. So I love that you said that you split your days into thirds. I do too. I always go and do me first. I go play, whether it's tennis, whether it's working out, whether it's, taking a walk with my husband. I do all of me first because I want to make sure I'm in the best mindset that I can possibly be. And then I go into that work life and all that. So as entrepreneurs, obviously we have more control over our schedule. We're creating that schedule. We're creating that timeline. So for us, yes, we can start a little bit later, but for individuals that aren't entrepreneurs or don't have, authority over their schedules, how would you encourage them to maybe divide it up in thirds? Maybe it's a little bit different schedule or maybe it's getting up earlier. How can they make that happen?
Yeah, I think if you don't have control over your own schedule, I think as you progress in life and develop more skills and develop yourself, I think eventually you will have more and more autonomy. And so that's good. More percentage, personal freedom. I think that's good. But if you don't right now, I would say try to go to bed a little earlier, wake up a little earlier, so that you do have some time for yourself, and figure out whether or not you're a night owl or an early bird. If you're a night owl, maybe you want some more R&R in the evening and you like to go to bed at 11 or 12 or whatever it is. And then some early birds really want to wake up with the sun and they want to go for a walk or they want to do yoga or whatever it is. So you got to figure out whichever one fills your cup most. All of us are, I always say you have 3 human resources, only 3. You have time, you have effort, and you have money. And how well you choose to allocate those resources is going to determine the overall quality of your life. And then the question goes, well, what determines where you allocate the resources? And I think it's what you focus on. So, and what determines what you focus on is what you measure. So if I can just give you this real quick, I think, and this is what I do with all my clients too, what are you measuring? So for example, at NLU, I'm measuring gross revenue as the CEO. Okay, so what I measure determines my focus. And what my focus determines is where I put my time, effort, and money. Okay, we need another team member, put money there. Okay. Time and effort. I need to do more sales to make more sales. So what are you measuring is a great question to ask yourself. And when it comes to your morning or your evening or putting you first, you need to figure out what fills your cup most. And in order to fill your cup, that the more your cup is full and the better you get at doing that, the more time and effort you have to allocate. It's kind of like if you've ever bought one of those crappy iPhone chargers that are like Amazon suggested, but they're knockoffs. You plug your phone in and it's at 20%, and then you come back an hour later and it's at 26%. And you're like, damn, that's what a lot of us are doing when we're just scrolling Netflix, is we're not actually recharging. And the reason why is because we don't know our own love languages. So for me, I watch a movie. I'm a movie buff. I'm obsessed. If it's a good, inspiring movie, and I am 10 out of 10, 12 out of 10 fulfilled. It's like, oh, unbelievable. Emilia, if she goes for a walk in the sun, she's like a sunflower. She just opens up and she's good for the week. I could sit in this dark office by myself without seeing the sun for a whole week. I don't even know if it would affect me. Okay, so everyone is a little different with this stuff. And you got to figure out what fills your cup most. And then you got to figure out whether or not you want to do that in the morning or the evening. The only thing I would say is be careful of the evening, because usually that's when our bad decisions start to happen. And so if you can cut it a little earlier, you'll be better off. Because usually that's when we eat what we don't want to eat, watch what we don't want to watch, that kind of thing, because of our decision fatigue. And that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I love the idea that you're giving individuals the option for them to choose versus saying, this is what works. This is what works for everybody. This is what you have to do. So I love that you're leaning into what is the best for you. So your clients are really lucky to work with you when you have that type of approach. So I want to get right into the employee side of things. I know you lead a team. I had some great conversations with your team members as well, and I feel like they are amazing. I have a great team as well. A lot of it comes down to the leadership and how we appreciate our employees, how we treat our employees, and we encourage them as well to take ownership of their own life and their own personal care. So I would love for you to share with our listeners how you encourage your team members to be the best they can be, not only for themselves, but for other people and for the mission of your company.
Yeah. So the hardest thing in the entire world is leading a team. I do believe that to be true. I think leadership is the most important skill in the 21st century. I also think it's by far the most difficult, which makes sense. The number one most important thing for leading a team is leading by example. So at my team at NLU, we all track habits. And I started tracking habits 9 years ago. I got in a tough car accident in my mid-20s. I was 26 years old, and I'll go briefly with this, but my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28 years old, when I was 2 years old. And so when I was 26, I had a near-death experience in a car accident. I was physically okay, but it was not good. And that really rattled me. And so that's when I turned everything around. That's why I keep referencing that I haven't gotten sick in 9 years. That's when I became personal growth, self-improvement. That's when I kind of was awakened to this whole world of improve yourself every day. And so anyways, the reason I'm mentioning that is because I started tracking habits back then. I had these little notebooks behind me, and I used to track habits every single day. And I was just the weirdo tracking habits. And back then I was definitely a weirdo compared to my peers because they weren't into personal growth yet. And many of them still are not, by the way. But anyways, so later on, I started to develop these habit trackers, and we use Google Sheets and all this stuff. Now we have a whole dashboard. And so I manage and lead a 21-person team now, and which is wild because it grew a lot in the last year and a half. So things exponentially expand. But the reason why I'm able to do that, and it's completely virtual, there's no headquarters at NLU. We have a live event coming up in 9 days that I've mentioned, and the team's flying in. We're getting an Airbnb for the whole weekend. It's going to be awesome. Not the whole team, but some of the team. And so we only see, some of us have never even met in person. So Laura, who you spoke to, is from Spain. She was a listener, and she became a team member. She's been working at NLU for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. And we've never even met in person. So welcome to the 21st century, right? How cool is that? It's wild. And I think we will. She'll probably fly out next year for Next Level Live. But the point is it's really, really challenging to lead a virtual team and keep everyone harmonized in the direction of the business's dreams and goals, because you have to create a culture where everyone's consistently engaged. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in. And so I do believe that the most important thing in a business is org structure and metrics and discipline and your ability to stay consistent. And I think we're back to the righty-lefty thing. I'm an engineer. I'm a computer engineer. Anyone listening to this who's an engineer probably can tell. I think in numbers. I always have. I always will. That's all very important. And I think engineers do very well in the 21st century. I think that speaks for itself. One of the reasons they don't do well, though, is their emotional intelligence is not high, typically. Usually they're the weird, geeky nerds like me who couldn't talk to anybody for a long time until I learned how to be a social human. And so if you can come up in emotional intelligence, emotional maturity, humility, courage, vulnerability, and emotional engagement on the left, and you have the numbers and the structure and the discipline and the long-term strategic thinking on the right, I mean, you are a force to be reckoned with. And I think that that's the most valuable ambidextrous situation in the 21st century. And I think that's very, very rare. I'm very grateful to be in a place now where I feel like I'm pretty good at both. But I'll tell you what, I was not. Emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, that stuff never came easy to me. I used to think I was a strong communicator. And I now understand my business partner, Kev. Him and I would give speeches together. And everyone liked him better. It wasn't even close. Everyone loved his speeches and mine weren't good. And I didn't understand why. And okay. So if it was a room full of computer engineers, they would like me better. I have a modality of thinking that's very different than the common modality of thinking. So I'll go quick with this, but I think you'll be fascinated. And this comes back to leadership to answer your original question. If you want to lead a team, you have to know their modalities of thinking. Okay, I've uncovered I've uncovered 4 modalities of thinking. So for you, Jenny, I want you thinking of yourself for this. Okay. So the first one is mathematics. You think in numbers. Everything's graphs and numbers in chronological time. Okay. That's mine. It's the rarest. Most people do not think in numbers. Okay. Number 2 is pictures. You think in images. So you think in terms of, you can picture your car and you get into it and what color is it and how does it, okay. The third modality of thinking is words. That's the most common. Most people think in words. Okay, that's yours. So you're probably a very strong communicator. Yeah. Okay. So words is the one that if you're really good at words and you think in words, most likely you can connect easily with other people. Okay. Words also construct emotions. So if you articulate a sentence about your dog, you'll have a certain emotion about it, that kind of thing. All right. Then number 4, and this one's also super rare, is energy. Think in terms of energy, vibe. So we all have all 4. Okay. Every human has all 4. But what's your main one? We all have a main 1 or 2. So energy was my blind spot. I didn't think in energy at all. It wasn't until my girlfriend came into my life and she started saying, Alan, that person's low vibe. I'm like, low vibe? What do you mean? Yeah. Now it's obvious. And it's like, oh, that person's wicked low vibe. Whoa. Right. So I was just around a bunch of toxic people without even knowing it. But I'm just sitting there thinking in numbers. It's like, okay. So at the end of the day, when you're leading, you're trying to lead. Think of like 2 arms and 2 legs. You're trying to lead with only one of the 4 that you could use. It's like trying to win in basketball without using, with having 1 arm tied behind your back and not using both your legs. And so as a leader, you have to understand your team. You have to understand what they value, not what they say they value, what their actions show they value. You have to understand what their modality of thinking is, and you have to communicate in that. And you have to emotionally connect. You are here for a purpose to drive results, yes. But I'm telling you, if you focus on the relationship, the results will come. If you focus on the results, the team will run, especially if they're emotionally driven human beings. And I'm a computer engineer who just can grind out every single day. I've worked out every day for 2 years. I just numbers. But if you drive your team that way, you're in for a lot of trouble. And so hopefully that's helpful for everybody. So figure out what your thinking modality is. Think about what your team's thinking modality is. Think about what the core values are, and try to keep everyone emotionally engaged through connecting on those things.
Yeah. So I love that you said that. And I have to share a story as well. So I had 2 managers that ran my music studio. And one morning I came in there and I said, oh, you're never going to believe what my husband told me. Like I had negative energy, or my energy was off. And I said that to them and they both looked at each other. And then they looked at me and I was like, what? And they're like, you have such strong energy. We know by you just walking in what kind of day it's going to be. And they said, your energy has so much an impact on all of us. And usually I was very bubbly, but that day or maybe another day, I wasn't. I came in just this past week, actually. I was at work on Monday and I had one of my leadership team members say, hey, your energy is really high. And it was not a positive thing. He actually called me out in front of a bunch of my team members. And I got really, really embarrassed. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I went back to that place. My studio manager's energy is the same way. So we are very much aware of that. But you're totally right. I mean, it has such an impact on your leadership, your relationships, how you communicate, how you're showing up as well. So I think that those 4 things are super important. And I think those are easy things that we can all lean into and probably relate to and figure that out.
Well, one more thing to add quickly is there's a resonant frequency I did computer engineering and signal analysis. This was one of the classes I had to take. And there's a resonant frequency. When someone says, hey, we're not on the same page, a lot of times what they're saying is we're on different wavelengths. We're not vibing on the same level. And one of the problems as a leader and as someone who works on themselves and self-improvement, it can be very hard. The truth of the matter is, right, let's say you're leading a 7-year-old. They can't jump to where you are, but you can go to where they are. And as a leader, you have to do that. But how do you do that without losing your energetic dominance, for lack of better phrasing? How do you do that without being disempowered? And so when you said hey, so, you came in with really high energy, and he was saying that as a negative, two things are true. Either he was saying, hey, you're living in a little bit of ego and it's inflated, or he was trying to knock you down because he was feeling insecure about the fact that he couldn't get on your level. I'm not sure which one it is. You could probably tell us.
Yeah, I just got out of another meeting with two other people where it was not the most positive meeting, and there wasn't time for us to kind of debrief and kind of walk away, get our emotions set before we went into another meeting, and we were already 15 minutes behind. So I think that he was like maybe wanting to be part of the other meeting, and then he wasn't part of the meeting, and then so it could be a combination of things, but it was a learning experience that number one, need to check the ego, check the energy, especially as the leader, because I do want to set a good example. And at that point, I just walked out of the meeting because I had to get myself together. So I think that's another thing that we have to do too. When you don't have the right energy, like removing yourself for a little bit to just bring yourself down, go through those thought processes, take a deep breath so you can come in and be the best version, not only for yourself, but for the other people that are at the table with you in the workplace.
Mm-hmm. The best, I think, verbiage for this is centered energy. Because if we're triggered or we're hungry or late or tired, we come in and we get triggered and we're insecure, and then we fake the. So what's the difference between an empowered leader who's transformational and someone who's toxic dominant? Right? The difference is one of them is authentically in their centered energy. The other one is inflating because of their insecurities. And so a lot of times I trigger people. So I haven't triggered you a ton, which is great. I appreciate that. So you have high self-belief. People with low self-belief get very triggered by me because they think I'm very arrogant. When in reality, they just don't believe in themselves, but think they do.
I love that you just said that. I get that all the time.
You have very high self-belief.
I'm like, you should believe in yourself, actually. So every year for the company, every year as a company, we pick a word for the year. And everybody talks about what does this word mean. We create a focus wheel and we basically say how this word is going to impact. How is it going to impact us personally, professionally? How is it going to impact our company? How is it going to impact our clients? And our word for this year is believe, because we want to lead and believe in our students, but we most importantly want to believe in ourselves that we're capable. We are the best. We're going through a lot of different transitions right now. So having belief that it's going to all work out is another thing that we're going through right now. So that's another way that we work on our culture and we build our team up, because as you were saying, it's really, really hard to build that culture, especially if you're not in a place. So for all the companies that are working remote and have, VAs, or they have people working remote all across the country, what's a tip that you could give them that would help them with boosting the culture or bringing the team together?
So if you ever played Mario Kart, there's those little booster things, right? I try to create those. So you have to, in order for the plane to take off, you have to have a good runway. And I think of the runway as sort of the SOP of meetings. So I'll give you mine. And we also, by the way, do words too. So I love that you do that. My word for the year is proactive, but we each have a new word for each year. So we all have sort of our own. Yeah, so I have it written over there, but I love that you do that. That's such a good thing. That said, when it comes to the runway, what is a runway? It's the calendar. So I'll give you ours. So every other week, we have a team huddle where everyone attends, and the people who are in different time zones, like the Philippines or Spain, they watch the recording. They don't attend live because it's like 3 a.m. for them. So, but that's every other week. So every other week we have a team huddle. It's an hour and a half long. The first half hour is connect. The first half hour is what was your most important win for the week, and what was for the bye week, and what was your most important improvement. Personal life, not at NLU, but personal life. So we all connect. That's where you see a lot of vulnerability, who people are struggling with, celebrate each other's successes. Sometimes it goes over a half hour. And then we get into metrics. See, I used to do it the other way around and it wasn't working. You don't want to just lead with metrics necessarily. You want to connect first.
Yeah, depending on the metrics too, that could set the tone for the rest of the meeting.
So then we have department meetings. So we have 21 people, 21 departments. There's no correlation between those two numbers. It just happens to land on that. But we have 21 departments. So I do a bi-weekly meeting with each department head. And that's where we connect first, and then we track metrics. So each department has its own metrics, top 3 most important metrics. MIM is what we call them, most important metrics. And then at the end of that meeting, we come up with a most important win and a most important improvement. Where are we winning? Where do we need to improve? So I'll give you an example. So book club is one of our departments. We do a book club every week, and it's free, and people come, and we pick books. It's all great. Brandon is the director of book club. So he's what we call the DRI, the directly responsible individual. So what are we measuring? We're measuring number of attendees, we're measuring number of books we've read, and we're measuring WhatsApp community members. So we have a group that's public with all our WhatsApp members, and that's where we inform people about stuff. Okay. Then after that, we have something called a GIP score, Growth Impact Profitability Score. And what that is all 21 departments from 0 to 10, how well we're doing. And then the most important win, most important improvement from the department meeting gets put into that. And that's what we go over with everyone on the team huddle. So now everyone with these siloed departments understands how to cross-pollinate great ideas. And that's when everyone has ideas with all the different departments. And on top of that, it's cool because we get to help each other, support each other when we're struggling, but we also get to celebrate each other when we're winning, so that everyone knows that they're going to be celebrated and or supported on the next team huddle when things are going well or not going well. Okay, and then underneath that, I also coach everybody. So I coach the whole team, and not the freelancers, but the core team. And we do that bi-weekly. And so that's kind of the runway. Bi-weekly coaching, we all do peak performance tracking, which is habit tracking. And in the coaching, I run reports with the COO, and they get submitted into the main group so everyone can see. You ever see someone with a Fitbit challenge and they're like running around their living room? Yeah, it just provides accountability. So everyone has reports every other week of like how they're doing. And the PPT is not just for NLU, it's for their personal life too, like 60 ounces of water a day, or getting to bed on time, or doing 30 minutes of exercise, or whatever it is, right? It's not just NLU dictatorship here. The goal is transformation and growth, personal and professional.
Yeah, which is super, super important, especially if you want to have people on your team long term. If they're showing up really happy and healthy, that's exactly the culture you're going to have. That's the same experience that your clients are going to have as well.
The way that I see it too, Jenny, is that I don't want this to be, listen, okay, NLU, we're trying to have a huge impact. We need to grow. We need to have an impact. We need to be profitable. I want this to be such a massively fulfilling, growth-oriented culture so that you don't want to go anywhere else. I want NLU to be so good in real life, not like me talking about it, but like in real life, I want it to be so good that you would never want to go anywhere else. I want it to be a special, rare group of people like the 300 Spartans who all really care. Picture like a less toxic masculine version of the movie 300, but like emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature peak performers that just cannot coexist with other people who are complacent in their real life, and they just want to make a bigger impact in the world. That's what I want NLU to be. And the other thing that I'll share, last thing I'll share, is we bring team members from the community. If you want team members that share your core values, bring on listeners. So NLU, we have 1,600 episodes. We've got 170 countries, people from 170 countries that listen. We're very grateful. We started with very little, by the way. So the first year was only 1,000 listens. We didn't start there. But the point is that now we only almost ever hire from within the community. If you listen to NLU every day, we do an episode a day, you already have our core values of gratitude, of humility, of courage, of growth, of impact. You're already heart-driven. Trust me, you would hate me if you didn't believe in yourself. So that's what you do. It's like this really cool thing. You build a great community, you build a great company, but you can build a great team from within that community. And then you set up the runway. And as long as you're consistent with the runway, then you can harmonize everyone's individual goals with the company goals. And it really turns into something pretty magical.
Alan, I think you're doing an amazing job, and I love what you're saying. And I feel like we're very, very similar with our leadership as well. So if there are individuals that are listening that you are leading a team, or you're thinking about starting a business, or maybe you're not really happy with your job and you're thinking about leaving because they don't operate like this, I would encourage you to lean into this. Maybe share this episode or Alan's, coaching or Alan's podcast with maybe one of your team leaders. Maybe they could start with changing the culture, maybe create the change that maybe you want to see. But I definitely think that this type of leadership and boosting this culture and caring about the humans that actually work within your organization will serve not only you, but it'll serve them, and that's going to serve your clients, which is going to also serve your bottom line. You're going to be very, very profitable. I always do everything for the experience and for the passion. I always know the money will come later. That's how I live my life. And that's how a lot of our teachers and a lot of our team members live too. I mean, they're getting to do what they love, and they have a really great environment to do what they love. And once again, I obviously don't want anybody to leave either. So I want to create a culture that they never want to leave, especially in today's world, right? Where hiring is challenging, and the cost of people is much higher, and the cost of services. So anyways, all right, before we get going though, I definitely want you to talk about the importance of the people around you, friends and family. We've got some listeners that probably could use some guidance from you. How would you tell them to lean into validating and taking ownership and helping, supporting the family members in their house or beyond there?
The most important thing in the world, like if you were to actually sit me down and I've been coaching. I just surpassed my 5,000th one-on-one coaching session recently, and that's 5,000 hours. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's 5,000 hours with all different people from all different backgrounds, all different countries from all over the world, Canada and Spain and Italy and a couple in Australia. And the reason why I say that isn't to say anything about me. It's to say I have 5,000 hours with individuals from all over the world, all different countries, all different backgrounds, all different cultures, all different industries. And there's certain common patterns that just become so blatantly obvious over time. And if you were to ask me, what is the most important thing that really does matter in the real world, despite any sort of motivational quips? Number one is self-belief. By far the most important. If you don't believe in yourself, you're in so much trouble. And I'm not saying that because I want to be unkind. I'm saying that because it's true. Okay? You can build it. You can build it. To answer your original question that you just asked me, the second thing after self-belief. If you don't believe in yourself, you've got to start there. That's number one. Number two is self-worth. And this is where relationships come in. I had very high self-belief and very low self-worth. Jenny, I think you probably did too. Okay. That's why you didn't put yourself first, because you didn't think you were worthy of it. And you always grinded and achieved, but at the expense of self versus the alternative. Okay. So we're kindred spirits here for sure. And we've been through the massive pain of having 10 out of 10 self-belief with 0 out of 10 self-worth. And other people that have inflated self-worth, it looks like self-belief, but trust me, when they're alone, they're in self-doubt and they don't. And that's why they tear you down, by the way. FYI, because it's not real. Okay. So number one is self-belief. Number two is self-worth. When you have low self-worth, you will not filter out people like you should. If I could tell you a mistake that I made, it is spending time with toxic people way longer than I ever should have. And it's because my deepest wound is unlovable. If you have very high self-belief, you're not naturally relatable. You never really fit in. It's a struggle to fit in. You're almost kind of made fun of, like, oh, she's a tryhard. Oh, he's just a tryhard. Don't worry about him. Oh, he's arrogant or she's arrogant or whatever. When you're empowered and you really believe in yourself, it triggers everyone else's insecurities, especially if they're insecure about being unintelligent. And they lash out at you. And when they lash out at you, you start believing that you're not worthy and that something's wrong with you, right? And I'm articulating a lot of your past. Okay. How do you build self-worth? You can build it. I have the formula for both, and I can give them if you want. Okay. The third thing is who you surround yourself with. But that's predicated on the first two. If you have low self-worth, I guarantee you're surrounding yourself with people who are takers. Because you have the one thing they need, which is self-belief. The people who get angry with you when you set a boundary are the people who are benefiting from you not having any. When you set a boundary and there's a huge lash out, how interesting. Whereas if you were to set a boundary with me, Jenny, right now and say, honestly, I don't know about, I would be like, okay, totally understand. I'm so sorry. My bad. I'm not benefiting from you not having boundaries. Okay, so toxic people always show their true colors when you set boundaries, but people with low self-worth never set boundaries. At the end of the day, here's what I would say. Check in with your self-belief and self-worth. If your self-worth is low, you most likely are surrounding yourself with very toxic people who do not want to see you win. And you got to ask yourself the tough question. Who's the person who I want intuitively? I want them to want me to win, but they just don't. And then I want you to ask yourself another question, which is, who's that person who, even though they're a little bit of maybe they seem a little arrogant, or maybe they don't seem a little off, or maybe they don't wish me a happy birthday, but they just want to see me win. They always have poured wind into my sails. Oh, then ask yourself the tough question. Which one do you spend more time with? Yeah. Achievers are hard to spend time with because they don't have any time. Don't take it personally if I don't wish you happy birthday, Jenny. I don't even know my own goddamn birthday. Truth be told, right? But that's the thing. Someone who's toxic might wish you a happy birthday. And you might think they care about you more than I do. They don't. They just are doing a whole lot of nothing, and they're manipulating everyone around them. Okay, so I don't want to get dark, but that's my point, is that truly self-believing, aspirational, wonderful humans who want to see this world become a better place, they are off doing things. They do not have time to wish you a happy birthday. That doesn't mean they don't love you. That doesn't mean they don't care about you. And that doesn't mean those aren't the very people that you should be seeking out. And what you should be doing is sailing away from toxic and all the people that really are just trying to hold you back so that they validate their own insecurities.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. Before we wrap up, though, you must tell everybody how they can connect with you, because I feel like we have a lot of people that probably do need someone like you in their life. And I think you can hold them accountable. You can motivate them. It seems like your approach may be a good fit for some, maybe not for some others, but I feel like it works for me. I know, because I'm very similar to you, but I would love for them to connect with you. And definitely we want to get the 25 conscious love languages for them as well. So tell us your website, tell us your podcast, tell us how we can connect.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I really appreciate it. Seriously, you take your platform very seriously, and I really appreciate that so much. So Next Level University is the name of the podcast. That's the one with 1,600 episodes. You know, the motto there is a mentor in your pocket every day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. It's what Kevin and I grew up without fathers, no male role models. We wish we had when we were kids. And it's not for kids. We have people that are in their 50s, 60s listening as well. So it's not for kids, but it's 1% improvement in your pocket every day for free. That's the goal. The other one is called the Conscious Couples Podcast, and that's the one that I do with Emilia. It's all about how to flourish in your relationships. So Next Level University is about life, love, health, and wealth, holistic self-improvement. The Conscious Couples Podcast is entirely about for conscious singles and conscious couples who want to have a magnificent, intimate relationship. It's mostly focused on intimate relationships. And then if you want to email me, I already gave my email earlier, Alan, ALAN, at nextleveluniverse.com. The podcast is Next Level University. The website is Next Level Universe, all spelled just like it sounds, because the person who has nextleveluniversity.com is asking for way too much money. So we said, nope, nextleveluniverse.com, and everything is on there. We have 21 departments, book club, monthly meetups. We do live events. We do all kinds of cool stuff, and all of that is on the website.
Well, you're going to keep rocking it, and one day you'll be like, I'll just buy it now. Or you know what? Who knows? Maybe they'll just shut it down. Who knows? But that's awesome. Well, Alan, you're super talented, knowledgeable. You're obviously very self-aware, very much in tune. I can tell that you love math and numbers. You're very statistical as well. You actually kind of remind me of my husband. He's very much the analytical and the numbers guy. He's a corporate finance guy. That makes sense. So anyway, so everyone that will listen today, thanks for tuning in. If you can think of 5 people to forward this podcast to, please do. Once again, we were talking about how to boost your own self-worth, believe in yourself, how to motivate and encourage your team members, and once again, to remove the toxic people from your life that are not serving from you and only want to take from you. We really appreciate Alan. Thank you so much. And if you loved it, always consider giving us a 5-star review. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for listening to the Stroke It podcast today. If you want to stroke me, please consider giving me a 5-star review, sharing this podcast with 5 of your favorite friends or someone you may think could benefit from the podcast, and consider joining my collective. It's completely free for the first 30 days, and you can go to jennysfreegift.com.